Hey everyone, Noodle here. Today I'm going to show you how to film your camp like a pro. Camp building is a huge part of Fallout 76. Whether you like to create cool camps just for fun, for your own YouTube videos, or for competitions, presenting your beautiful creation in an interesting and professional way is just as important as the build itself. After all, you want your audience to experience the same thing you do when you walk through your camp. Yet, somehow, when we look at things through a camera lens, even in the game, everything looks magically less glamorous and more busy and ordinary. As a filmmaker, I have a few tricks up my sleeve that I will share with you today. So grab those virtual cameras and action! First things first, we need a camp and a camera. For the purposes of learning how to film, just practice on your current camp. I will be demonstrating this on my latest build, the Evil Dead Retreat, which I created especially for the Summer Sleepaway Camp Contest. We have a whole separate video on the rules of the contest and how to apply, so if you don't know anything about that yet, check it out here. And I will drop a link in the pinned comment as well. Okay, that's the camp, now for the camera. There's several ways to film in Fallout 76, but there's only one professional way, and that's photo mode. I see a lot of camps filmed in first-person view, just running through the camp. Don't do this. I also see people actually filming in building mode. That's even worse. I actually use both of these for building tutorials. But for actual camp videos, photo mode is the only way to film. We want this to look like an actual motion picture and not a screen share of gameplay. Once in photo mode, you will get this little menu in the bottom right corner of your screen. There are a few basic settings that I like to adjust before filming anything. First, the field of view slider. I like to set mine a little bit back like this. Then, camera speed. This is the most important one. Set this to as low as possible. This way you will have the most control and get those cinematic pro shots. Depth of field, it may seem tempting and professional, but honestly, in the game, it just makes things look blurry and out of focus in an undesirable way most of the time. I do use this on some occasions, but when I want to show off a property, I don't use it at all. If you're new to filming this way, I recommend starting without depth of field. And finally, over in the player menu, you have the option to make yourself invisible as you film. Most of the time, I have show player off, unless I'm doing hero shots. We'll get to hero shots later on in this video. There are several types of shots in filmmaking, and if you master a handful of them, you will be all set to create little professional films with your camp build. The first and probably the most important shot is what we call the establishing shot. This is a type of a wide shot. This view of your camp, usually from above, gives the viewer a sense of location and scale. In real life, we would use a drone shot for this. A little bit of movement is always desirable, but not too much. This is why we set our camera controllers to slow speed. Don't go crazy with swooping racing drone shots. Slow and steady, like a real estate video. Try shooting these shots from high angles to give a bird's eye view, allowing viewers to see the layout and surroundings of your camp. Remember, the goal is to convey the full scale and scope of your build. Every film should tell a story. Yes, even a camp build. And I don't mean that you have to have characters living there and 16 friends to help you with the filming and a full movie sequence. No. A story can be very simple. Mine is a summer camp retreat that happens to be a creepy horror film cabin, specifically modeled after the Evil Dead cabin. Imagine if the Evil Dead universe decided to open up an actual camp retreat. What would that look like? That's the story I'm telling. So in my shots, I want to bring attention to A, the camp aspect of the build, and B, the horror aspect of the build. Keep it simple. To start telling our story, we can now bring our camera a little closer with slow pans and zooms that show more of the detail of the build. When filming, make sure that your movements are smooth. Sudden, jerky motions can be jarring to the viewer. If something goes wrong, film it again. If this happens and you accidentally film through an object, film again. To ensure that all of your shots are smooth and beautiful, film a lot. I usually get 30 to 90 minutes of footage for a 3 to 5 minute final clip. Now, let's move on to close-ups. Close-ups are key to highlighting the intricate details you've worked so hard to create. Get up close and personal with your favorite parts of the build. If you have merges, show them off. If you have humor, show it off. Put the spotlight on the intricate decorations, unique structures, and small but important features. Close-ups add depth to your film, giving the viewers a chance to appreciate the finer details that might be missed in wide shots. Always keep your camera movements slow and steady. I like to do a full 20 to 40 second pan on each close-up subject, even if I will end up using only 5 seconds of that footage in the final cut. Film everything. Scrap, well, you'll end up scrapping close to 90% of it all. That's filmmaking. In my films, I like to use extreme close-ups. As the name suggests, these are close-ups that are extremely close. In the game, that's a little bit tricky. The camera doesn't really allow us to get extremely close, but we can use our field of view settings to get some extra zoom, and we can also zoom in a little bit on the subject in post. But be careful with that option because it's very easy to lose quality that way. Extreme close-ups are like the cherry on top. Don't overdo them. 2 or 3 is more than enough. They focus on symbolic items that represent the heart of your camp. This type of a shot can evoke emotion and drive home the uniqueness of your build. If I want the horror aspect to be more prevalent than the camp aspect, I will insert extreme close-ups of the meat piles, the skeletons, and those weird mole rat merges. In photography, as well as in film, any shot is more interesting with a living, or dead I suppose, subject in it. Shots with living subjects are called hero shots, and they show off the hero of the story. In this case, it's me and a couple of my allies. Unless you're doing a full video production with characters in a story, I wouldn't spend too much time on hero shots. Just like extreme close-ups, these are little gems to break up the pattern of the video and make it a little bit more interesting. So just 3 or 4 is more than enough. You can even combine close-ups, extreme close-ups, and hero shots. Try to strike a pose, or catch your ally doing something fun while wearing a theme-appropriate costume. If you have a pet in your camp, hero shot. Now, if this was an actual filmmaking tutorial, I would spend several hours talking about lighting, and I would probably start with that. Lighting is crucial in filmmaking, but in the game we're very limited with lighting options, and specifically controlling our lighting. Still, we can work with what we have. Ideally, you want consistent lighting for the whole story, but game time is sped up, and while you're getting that one cinematic pan of the docks, 3 game hours go by and your colors and shadows are all over the place. It can rain, you can get a rad storm, fog, nukes, you name it. One thing you can do to avoid all that is to build in a shelter. If you have a shelter that looks something like this, with trees and grass and a sky, that's a good option. The weather and lighting here will never change. However, that may be a drawback as well. My camp, for instance, is meant to be creepy and relies heavily on those jack-o'-lanterns for mood, so night shots are actually important to me. Another option is to use weather stations, which you can only use above ground, not in shelters. You can set up clear weather, rain, snow, there are a couple of others I think, but this doesn't control night and day. You still have to keep an eye on that clock. Finally, if you have the option, the Fallout first option that is, to build in a private world, do that. I am unable to do anything in the public world without a swarm of people all waving at me, which I really appreciate. I love you guys too, but when I'm building, I don't need photobombers. And unfortunately, we don't have a "please go away, I'm building" emote yet. As far as indoor lighting is concerned, light everything. Dark corners may look interesting and moody from the first-person perspective, but on screen, they will just look like dark pools of nothing. Put little practicals everywhere. That's what we call these tiny little lights that don't really illuminate the whole room, but rather draw attention to individual items. Regardless of how you go about it, prepare to spend nearly as much time on filming and editing as you did on the build itself. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, my build is for the Summer Sleepaway Camp Challenge. And for that event, we're limited to either 5 photos or a 30-second clip. 30 seconds is rough. I had to cut down all of my footage by a lot and keep only the most important and visually striking shots to tell my story. Here's how it turned out. If you are preparing for the Summer Sleepaway Camp Challenge as well, keep the tips from this video in mind. Check out my other tutorials on how to build a camp, especially the one on how to build on a lake, for additional insights and inspiration. Building a beautiful and functional camp is just the first step. Filming it professionally can make even the simplest build a strong contender. Top-notch presentation goes a long way, and it's the key to standing out. Thanks for watching. Noodle Pants, one half of Game Aviator. And until next time, keep those cameras rolling, and may the odds be ever in your favor.
In the heart of West Virginia, where the shadows creep and sway, lies a land of rusted dreams, where the brave dare not stray. Appalachia, oh, it's a treacherous ride, with dangers untold and nowhere to hide.